Hey everybody, it is your professor, your coding friend, and your homecoming king. And today we're going to talk about tables. So, the first thing you need to know about tables is how to get the boilerplate for it. So, if you go to Video 6 on Canvas, you hit this link. You'll come to this file, make sure you're logged in, make sure you hit Remix, make sure you change the title to something that makes sense for you, so you know what it is later, and you're good. And then I'll tell you what tables are. You've seen tables before. They come up on the internet a lot. They're used to organize information or put certain information together. They've got rows, they've got columns, they've got data. So how do you make something like this that has like a top bar and colors that go back and forth and things that are in different cells but on the same row or in the same column? It looks terrible, but it's not so bad. The components of a table you should be familiar with before we jump into the code. So remember that we have rows, we've got columns, we've got individual cells, we have the content inside of those cells, and we have headings. We've got column headings at the top and row headings on the side. And so we need to keep each of those components in mind once we start coding, because they make more sense visually than they do coding-wise. So if you're unfamiliar with a row, column, cell and its content, the column headers, and the row headers. So the first thing in order to start a table in HTML is to have a table tag. This one's very straightforward. It says table. There's an opening, there's a closing. Everything in between is table content. So let's go ahead and make one. Boop. Inside of our body, where our content goes, hit tab, and we're going to make an opening tag, table. Oh, and it automatically makes a closing tag for us because it be smart. And that's it, we've started a table. Next we need to add the rows. So the row element is tr, table row. It's got a starting and an ending, and you'll put cells inside of here. So this is an example of a table with two rows. You see starting, ending, starting, ending. And then the content that goes inside of each row is used table data. So this is where you'll put the numbers, the words, the stuff that you want to visually appear inside of your table will go inside of table data. So they're nested inside of the table rows. And TD for table data. So this is an example of a table with two rows and two data points. So let's see what that actually looks like when we code. So we're going to go into our table element, we're going to add two row elements, and we're going to make three table data elements inside of each of those rows. So let's do it. So we need, we're going to have two row elements. So I can just copy and paste this. Boop. Awesome. And I wanted to have, so that's two rows. I want to have three things of data inside. So that means I have to do three opening and closing tags for table data. So TD for table data. That automatically makes a closing. And then I just do that twice more. So now I have, or I will have, three cells inside of a single row. Beautiful. And then I'm just going to copy and paste this and put this in my other row. You can see already that it's started to make a table. It's sort of lightly colored. It'll be more obvious when we actually put out data in here. But you can see it's starting out. Okay, and then I'm going to put colors in here. So I have colors set up for the first one, brown, red, and purple, and then whichever ones you want for the second row. So brown, red, purple. Okay, you can see our table starting to fill out. And then whatever other colors. Blue, magenta, cyan is also blue, but whatever. So there we go. So you can see now we've got two rows, and 3 data elements in each row. Heck yeah. So this is starting to look complicated, but when you actually break it down, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. So how do we get those headings, those things at the very top of the columns and the things at the far left of our rows? So these things are called table headings, and they are abbreviated as TH. They also have opening and closing tags, and they should be put inside of rows as well, because they're data, so they need to be inside of a row. They also have an attribute. So the same thing like alts, widths, and height. There's a specific attribute that goes for table headings. You have to define the scope. So you want to say if this is a column, a header for a column, or if this is a heading for a row. So you'll say scope equals col for column and row for row. Okay, so let's go ahead and add some table headings. We're going to make a new row at the top. So above the rows we've already made, we're going to add in a new one. And we're going to create 4 table headings. We're going to leave the first one blank, and I'll show you why in a minute. We're going to put the floor, wall, and ceiling in the other table headings. And we're going to give them a scope of column. So I'll show you what that looks like. So here at the top, I'm going to add a new row because our headings do have to go into a row. And then I'll do TH scope equals col for column. And then I'm going to leave my first one blank. And then I'll add another one in. And I already forgot floor, wall, ceiling. Okay. Floor. Wall. Ceiling. I know I said paint, but I'm just being concise for timing's sake. Okay. So I'm going to show you why I left that space blank. We're going to add in some row headings. So at the top of our second row, we're going to add in a table heading with a row attribute. We're going to say office, and the next one's going to say kitchen. So at the top of this row, my second row, I'm going to add in a table heading with a scope of row. I'll automatically close it, and the content will be office. And then in my third row, I'm going to do the same thing again. Actually, I can just copy and paste that. So we left this first one blank because it doesn't correspond to any like data element. We want these column headings here to describe the color that we want the floor, the wall, and the ceiling, and that doesn't apply to these. These are our row headings. So I left this blank, so it'll leave a space because I specified it here to leave a space, and so it'll have that space there, but it won't have anything in it, and so that makes it more concise. And you can see here already what my table looks like. I've got these row headings, I've got these column headings, and I've got my data that corresponds with it. Very cool. Okay, so you can have a data set that takes up more than one row. So you can say that you want it to span, more than one column. So you can have it take up, it can be 2 columns wide or 3 columns wide or so forth. You just have to specify the attribute col span and then the amount of columns you want it to take up. So by default, it's going to take up 1 column. But if you put in col span 2, it'll now take up 2 columns. It'll be really long. You can do the same thing up and down. So if you want a really tall table data, you want a really tall cell, you can, in the table data opening tag, You can say row span, and then how tall you want it to be. Caption is the title of your table, and it is the first element inside of your table. And it goes like this, caption, closed caption. So it's just like figure and fig caption like we talked about last time, except this isn't for images, it's for tables. So let's add one of those in there. We're going to add a caption element to the top, and we're going to call it painting to-do list. So up here at the top, I'm going to add caption, and I'm going to say painting to-do list. There we go. And this is helpful for screen readers and for semantics to have something like caption inside of the table and to call it caption instead of having like a separate H1 or H2, because it correlates it with the table, so the computer knows that this caption is a caption describing the table, and also it helps us with our styling when we get into CSS. Okay. So now we're going to talk about some other aspects of semantics with the table. So just like your HTML has a head and a body, your table also can be divided up in such a way. So you can organize your information so it's easier to keep track of where things are within your table, and also allows people to sort through your data easier. So all of our data, except for the column headings, should go in the table body or T body. So the table is divided up just like your HTML document is divided up. It's got a head, a body, and a foot. So the main content is going to be inside of the T body, all of your data. The head is going to include all of your table column headings. So all of those that have the scope of call is going to be inside of your T head. So it'll look like this. You'll have T head, and then all of your table heading scope column will be in there, and then your T body with all of the rest of your stuff, except for the footer. So you also have a foot, and usually that is results, summaries, something that is the reaction to the data above is in the foot. So here we see like the total price is equal to this. That would be in the foot. That's just T foot. It goes at the bottom. It will look like this. Okay, so let's go ahead and organize our data. So here, where all of our table headings are for our columns, we're going to add in a T head. And it automatically gives me this closing. So I'm just going to cut and paste it. There we go. And because now this is all nested, I'm going to select all of it and hit Tab. I'm going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to do T body and cut and paste it. And so that covers the rest of my content. And I'm going to again take all of this and tab it so it's easier to see what is inside the head and the body. And you can see that in my CSS, I have something looking for where the head is, and it has a specific style for the head. So it's easier to delineate what is actual like data and what is a title. So not only is this good for organization, but it's good for selecting when you're styling. Okay, and then we're going to add a foot. So we're going to add a foot. We're going to put a row in that foot because all of your data should be inside of rows. We're going to add a row heading called status. So that's what our foot is going to do. It's going to have the status of all of our painting chores. And then we're going to add 3 data elements, and we're going to add the status of each of those. So let's go back. At the bottom, under body, we're going to add T foot. And then inside of that foot, we're going to have a table row. And then we're going to have a table head with a scope of row. We're going to say status. And then we're going to have table data, and it's going to be done, and incomplete. So now we know the status of our floors, our walls, and our ceilings in both our kitchen and our office. And we have a very nice looking table. Okay. So the HTML that we have done is organizing and creating the bones of our table. All of those aesthetic choices, the different colors, the row background color, all of that stuff was done in CSS. The important thing about setting it up in HTML this way is because that's a lot of data to keep track of and a lot of different styles, and it's a lot easier to select all of those things if you are structuring it like this. So we're setting it up for when we go into our CSS and add styling to it. To show you the difference between the basic HTML and adding the CSS, we're going to show what it looks like without the CSS. So inside of our homework, you're just going to go up to the top, and here you can see I have my link to my style sheet. Just go ahead and select that bad boy and hit delete. And so that's what it looks like without style. I mean, it still does its thing, but it just does that. So go ahead and undo and put it back in. Yeah, way better. Okay, so that's tables. So tables have a lot of different elements going on. They've got rows, columns, different types of headings, different types of data. There's different ways to structure it. You've got your captions, your head, your body, your foot. But all of that together makes a really cool looking item inside of your document. It really helps you keep track of complex information on your website. This is all the things we did. Make sure you check them off before you turn them in. All right, and next time we're going to review tables in class. I'll see you then.